Welcome to the Noble 2-3 podcast.
All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Glad you can finally make it up here. So how was shift the other day?
Shift was good. Not a whole lot. You know, we were talking with Palmer coming from 32, you know, sometimes like, oh, they're so slow, they don't really do anything. And I think we ran one call yesterday at like 8:30 in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, right off the bat. And we didn't do anything the rest of the shift. And it's like, well, we ran as many calls as they did. So we're really not that much busier, but sometimes we've got our days, obviously.
Yeah.
But it was just funny. Again, you think some stations don't do anything. You're like, well, they ran one call and we ran one call. So equals
That was the same thing as 4. Just
Yeah.
one call, code 4 check on a baby.
Yeah. The squad was busier. They ran, 5 or 6 and multiple with the city and.
So you're saying the engine only got one call?
Yeah. The engine.
Okay.
We were on the engine. Ran one call. The squad was busier, which is obviously pretty standard. But
Yeah.
so.
Cool. Yeah, one thing that we were talking about earlier with the whole the pantry thing that we were the shells.
Yeah.
So I went to go get the wood the other day, and I had to go up to Blue Ridge, and I went to like an actual lumber yard, and I bought 1x12s, and true dimensional 1x12s, and get out there into the yard, and the guys can't find it. So I was just like, well, do I need to special order it? What do I need to do? And they're like, well, we could just we'll find a 2x12 and we'll cut it down for you. And I was like, cool. So I'm already here. They're just gonna knock it out, and go back into the milling area, and there's just a 12-foot like giant bandsaw,
Yeah.
just covered in sawdust and OSHA violations.
You're gonna say blood for a second.
No, but it's like as soon as they kicked it on, and the medic in me was already like, oh.
Yeah, that's a bad idea.
Like I already kind of like stepped back, and I'm just watching it. Kind
Yeah.
of like, okay.
Yeah.
And he starts like pressing the little hydraulic lever, and the little clamp that holds the wood vertical opens up and then closes, and he's doing all these adjustments, and the blade's kind of
Yeah.
doing its thing, and I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Well, it's like, we were talking earlier about the reason why you had to go get that full dimension lumber, because the other lumber you bought was not true dimension. I feel like that's just a whole analogy for like all of America right now, that it's like you think you're getting what you're paying for, but it's really not. You're getting shafted.
yeah. But the saw and everything, so it starts like spinning up, and eventually like they get it going through, and one of the guys was like, oh yeah, like it actually like kicked through and like shot through some guy's windshield one time. I was like,
The piece of wood?
the wood.
Nice.
I was like, oh shit. And it made me like think about like you with like the whole like frontline medical defense, the stop the bleed stuff, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to do something on my off day.
So yeah, come get some training.
So yeah, if you want to elaborate on that a little bit, like what you do with your company, for anybody that doesn't know.
Yeah. So I own and operate Frontline Medical Defense. It's a small first aid business where we create and custom build first aid kits, and then we teach CPR, stop the bleed, basic first aid stuff. We go business to business. You can hire us in, privately, or again just to your business. We host classes occasionally for free, and then we teach out of Appalachian Gun Range and Pond in Jasper. We got a little bit of a deal with them where we come in and teach quarterly to their customers. And then again, people can buy all the first aid kits on our e-commerce website, and we got social media, but that's a whole other job in itself, trying to grow and work and manage social media.
It's a whole separate job in its own.
Yeah, and then just there's so many trolls on social media. Getting off topic there with the business, but so we've been going a little over 2 years now, and we're continuing to grow. We just got that deal with the subscription box, so that's what I was doing yesterday, was building some of the Band-Aid packs that go in one of the other kits. We've got to build 325 plus or minus was the deal, but it's going well.
How many have you got built so far?
I did 100 yesterday.
Okay. So almost a third of the way done.
Yeah, I was procrastinating. didn't feel like doing it. So I finally sat down and
Knocked it out.
busted some through.
Anybody
and,
help?
No, they all just looked at me.
God, what was I going to say? So yeah, you got about a third of them done. How many? You said 300 and
Yeah, 325.
when are they due?
To be honest with you, I don't know. It was more of like an open-ended kind of a deal. The guy was kind of like, get them to me when you can, and we'll put it in one of the next boxes that goes out. But it was probably a month-long discussion to try and work the deal and pricing, because going into subscription box, this is my first dipping the toe in that water. And he was pretty stout on pricing. I gave him our dealer pricing, and he was kind of like, yeah, no, that doesn't work. And so we went back and forth a little bit, and I went back and reworked all of my numbers that it cost me to build one of these kits. And then if I sell one at dealer cost, I make a couple bucks. If I sell 325 at less than dealer cost, I make decent. So what is worth my time and effort and energy. And man, the whole business thing is a completely different beast than the fire service. And I feel like the first aid stuff is in that same realm, because that's what we do.
Right.
But running a business and trying to actually make money that way, this is probably one of the first deals that we've had that now we've paid off all the business debt that I had when we started. Because, we having all those, dozens and dozens of tourniquets and quick cloths, and everybody makes the joke that all the supply rooms of the county are empty because I run my business. But I wish that was that easy.
You just sneak in when they're out on calls and
I brought in
like a couple.
Yesterday I brought in a huge box of just nothing but Band-Aids to make these Band-Aid packs. And again, they're like, well, you never get tired of hearing that joke, right? It's good. I like it.
It's like the Wilson volleyball thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah.
First time I've heard that.
Oh, great one. Dennis Leminez, Mr. Wilson.
Yeah. So no, it's good.
Cool. I remember like when you first started talking about everything, and we had talked about the importance of like a first aid kit and like anything you do outdoors or just like in general life. It's like you and me, but like we both conceal carry, but it's like a lot of the community does that, but it's like who actually has the means to save a life, but you do have the means to end a life,
right?
Or protect, protect your family by using that tool. But like actually having the first aid kit on hand as well to do what you need to do.
Yeah. And I listened to your episode last week with Tyler talking about Hicks, and I think we've both gone through some of the ups and downs of that whole ordeal. But I came out of that kind of with the asset mindset, some of the stuff we've talked about obviously at the station, and just how can you be an asset during whatever is going on? It doesn't necessarily have to be, at home or at the store or at work, or, just that asset mindset of, how can I help somebody one way or another? And I think a first aid kit is a fantastic way to do that. There's a lot of people that subscribe to that mindset that, if I make holes, I'm going to plug holes or whatever. And it's a real basic way of saying, well, if I'm going to shoot somebody, I also want to be able to either save them or save somebody else. And I subscribe to that. I'm not going to say I carry a med kit on me 100% of the time, because I think that'd be a lie. But we make a bunch of different ones that are easy to carry. And I think if you couple that with the training that you can get, I think you're going to be going the right direction.
Just being, being able to like stop the bleed, like put pressure on.
Yeah.
And just kind of, utilizing what you have on hand.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like you have extra stuff like in your Jeep.
Yeah.
And then I always have just like it's an old Army combat lifesaver kit that I've just kind of adapted and changed a couple things, but for the most part, all that stuff is still in there.
Yeah.
It's like if I need to, it's there for the masses. And then there's some stuff in there that's just I'm not really going to do for a stranger. It sounds sad, but we've talked about this, the whole the Good Samaritan thing. It's like we're allowed to do certain things outside of our job field, But the only reason we can do them in our job field is because like we're under a doctor.
Right. Yeah,
and
we've got a duty to act.
Yeah, so like on duty, we have the ability to do all this stuff, but it's like once we're off, we can't do the same stuff that we could while on duty.
Right. And I think a lot of people, I don't get into that thinking like, oh, I'm gonna dart a chest or something like that just on the side of the road.
Yeah.
From a layperson or whatever, and like people ask when I teach, but I'm like I'm not gonna go into it. You know what I mean? It's just not something I really think that somebody that has no medical experience either using the equipment or trying to diagnose an injury really has any need to do.
Right.
And that's just my personal opinion. There are other people that will teach it all day long, and that's fine. I just
but just know that like if something were to go wrong, like you could be held
I'm not gonna lie, like
liable.
when I get in those scenarios at work and I'm like, all right, should I decompress right now? Like in my head I'm like, dang, am I gonna do this? Like, so again, I think, I don't know, maybe it's just because we know more, and maybe the layperson's like, yeah, cool, just throw a dart in the chest. But me, I'm like, man, all right, is there anything else I can do before that? And maybe I try to talk myself out of more stuff.
Just BLS before ALS.
Yeah. So again, it's just not something. I mean, I have them. I've got decompression needles.
Same.
But again, it's me. Like I'm, been a medic for 10 years and would like to think I have an idea of what I'm doing.
Those, like kind of what I was saying earlier, is like those are for like close friends and family.
Yeah.
Like where I know that, hey, I'm doing this to save your life, and like they're gonna be cool with it, and like versus a stranger that's like, well, something went wrong eventually, and well, he did that, and he wasn't protected. I'm gonna sue you. And
yeah.
Well, damn, dude, I was trying to help you out.
Yeah. We teach, putting on bended chest seals, and that's a pretty, I think, low complication thing to do. But it's not without complication. If that vent gets clogged, and then instead of venting, it's now building pressure, and you can't understand that concept or be able to fix it by just, maybe I'll just pull it back and burp it. Again, so that's probably about the extent of real hard medicine, I think.
Right.
We teach when I get into teaching these classes. But I think Stop the Bleed is a fantastic course. If anybody has not taken that course, it's one of the...
So elaborate for those who don't know.
So Stop the Bleed is a roughly 1.5 hour course on basically stopping the bleed. So I always start the class like, hey, does anybody know where this course came from? Everybody's like, no, and I think I'm obviously more attuned to it because I teach it. I've got the curriculum and whatever, but it was developed after the Sandy Hook school shooting, and all these doctors got together and like, how can we keep these kids from dying in the schools? And essentially came up with if you can stop the bleed, you can save a life. So essentially just knowing, where to apply a tourniquet, where to pack a wound, when to pack, and when to apply tourniquets and those kinds of things. So it's a roughly hour-long PowerPoint.
It's still pretty basic knowledge.
Yeah. Again, it's the basics of it is recognize a life-threatening bleed and apply a tourniquet. Right. Is really what it boils down to. But we've added some stuff in there that I feel is important. That again, the PowerPoint you get from stopthebleed.org, if you're listening, is a little basic. So I've added in, some pictures of where some arteries are in the body. I've added in some videos of, a guy gets his arm sliced by plate glass and it just starts bleeding profusely, and we go into talking about why does a tourniquet even work, because of the circumferential pressure to cut off blood flow distal to that injury or that spot where the tourniquet is applied. So a lot of the stuff they don't go into. It's just like, oh, this is a tourniquet, put it on. And so I try and put more into it. And so our class is usually a little bit longer, and then I try and get people to apply the tourniquets. But again, it's only as good as
teacher.
The student is willing to do.
That's true too. Yeah.
Because like I've taught some at the last time at the gun range, it was mainly like 60-plus-year-old guys, and I think one girl, and they're like, nah, I don't want to put the tourniquet on. I don't want to. But for me, it's like you you got to learn, you got to practice, you got to put your hands on this stuff. It's just like anything else. If you don't practice it, you're not going to be good at it.
I mean, that's where, like, and I know, like, people learn different ways, but, like, that's where I truly learned. Like, you could teach me through the book and the classroom, and, like, a lot of it's just gonna go over my head, but the second I start getting hands-on and, like, oh, okay, like, I get the small little intricacies and, like, the fine motor movements and all that kind of stuff, you're like, oh, okay, like, it starts clicking.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are that way. They're just lazy. They just...
I don't know. Yeah, I don't know what it is, but that's what I tell them too. I'm like, I'm here for you. Like, as long as you want to sit here and put tourniquets on each other and pack wounds and whatever, like, I'm good with that, because my end goal is that you are comfortable with this information. You know, like, if you leave the class and you bought a tourniquet, but you still don't really feel comfortable with using it, it's kind of useless. But so that's how we make money really on the back end. We teach a class for free. We charge $5 if we're teaching it on our own, just to cover the cost of the equipment you use. But then we sell all that stuff on the back end of class. And, you know, I tell people up front too that, hey, you don't have to buy anything from me. You know, if you do, great. But, you know, then we talk about too, like, fake tourniquets are all over the place. And so he's like, oh, I got this tourniquet off Amazon for $12. I'm like, okay, well, it's probably fake and it's going to break when you actually need it.
So what's the difference between, like, a real one and a fake one then?
And I'm going to go more specifically on the cat tourniquet, because there are, God, we get so deep into all of this stuff.
We got time.
So I'm assuming, since you're in the military, you're familiar with TCCC or Combat Lifesaver, all that kind of stuff. So TCCC kind of sets the standards for military medical treatment.
What is TCCC?
Tactical Combat Casualty Care. Okay. And so really it's COTC or COTCCC, you know, Committee on Tactical Combat Casualty Care is the governing body. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but the people who kind of set down the algorithms and the things that we're going to do, and it's trickling down into civilian life and or, I guess, tactical medicine. So I took TECC, Tactical Emergency Casualty Combat or Casualty Care, which is basically the first responder version of TCCC. And TCCC recommends, I think it's 7 tourniquets to use. So there's a lot of tourniquets out on the market, but only 7 of them are recommended by TCCC for use in military. And again, when the county, the ambulance service is going to buy tourniquets, I would guarantee you they're only going to buy one of those 7 TCCC recommended tourniquets. So the CAT tourniquet by North American Rescue is one of those tourniquets. And that's one of my favorite. Like the SAM XT is another good tourniquet. TacMed Solutions, the Soft T Wide, is another great tourniquet. But mainly what we sell and teach in class is the CAT tourniquet, or a combat application tourniquet. So they retail anywhere from like $25 to $35, just kind of depending on the retailer. But I've seen some guys sell them for $25. I'm like, gosh, like, I don't buy them for much less than that. So I don't know. They just must do the volume thing. But
how are you making money?
Yeah. Again, you sell enough of anything at $3, you're going to make some money. But so we just go into the aspects of it, like, hey, flip it on the base of it, on the back of this, you know, the base plate. If you don't have numbers and an ID number on the back of that thing, most likely it's a fake CAT tourniquet. The Gen 7 has some specific things on there that...
So that lady or person in the classroom, was it a real one or was it...
I've seen some fake ones come through.
Okay.
And again, typically if you're paying less than $25 for a CAT tourniquet, that's going to be fake. $17, $18. I mean... So you're really only talking a difference of like $5, $8, $10 to get the real thing. But people, you know, they skimp out and they're like, oh, well, I can save a couple dollars here and a couple dollars there. And that's fine, I think, on some things. But again, the tourniquet, if you don't have a tourniquet when you need it, you're going to die. You know, or...
I mean, we've watched those videos of just small stuff, small interactions in the city or even in war, and it's like... Man, they drop quick.
Yeah. And the officers, you know, we got obviously the sheriff's office employed with the county. So everybody's carrying tourniquets. And I think most of them either get them issued or, you know, they're buying them. I've sold some stuff to some other officers. And, so spend the time to do a little bit of research and understand. We've posted some videos on our social media. I forget which one, but... and then there's always somebody out there, like I was telling earlier, the trolls on the internet and social media are real.
They're everywhere.
They are everywhere, and they just are itching to put their 2 cents in on something they have no idea what they're talking about.
Right. When did you do TECC?
I think I took it, I want to say like March of 21, something like that.
It's like a 2-day class, right?
Yeah, this wound up being a 3-day class. I think technically it's only a 2-day by like hours. And the first 2 days were classroom and some hands-on stuff. Then the third day was like practicals. That I think NAEMT doesn't actually require a third day, but this group that taught it.
See, I'd love to do it, but it's always you got to take a shift.
Yeah, and I
like
took,
if you could do it, if you could do it like on shift, that would be awesome.
So I think it depends on the provider giving it. You might be able to find it for a 2-day. We took the VAMS, Valkyrie Austere Medical Solutions, which they're a great company. They did a great job teaching the class, a lot of experience and hands-on knowledge, and I learned a lot. But there was I took it off shift. There were, I think, 3 or 4 county people in the class, and people from other departments. And
where was it?
It was at one of the fire stations in the community rooms.
Oh, okay.
In the county. So, but it was a great class, and I think it really opens your eyes to, like, unfortunately, how unprepared even we are as a department or EMS as a whole to any of these mass shootings. You know, I mean, trying to do these rescue task force things, which we've done some drills of, and going in with cover on the front and the back and trying to do EMS stuff, but we're still pretty far out for that, I think.
Right. I was thinking the other day too, is like somebody said something about like an accident on a squad, or I think it was like another AMR or rural metro died over in Forsyth. Unknown conditions, but I was thinking about how even if we were to get in an accident driving, all our EMS stuff is in like a compartment. Like on the engine, it's like in a compartment, and if it's on a squad, it's too far back. But like, what happens like if you get pinned in or something like that? Like maybe being able to have like a small IFAC, just like with a tourniquet, it's like some quick clot kind of stuff.
Yeah,
like
for yourself if you get
to stop the bleed stuff.
Yeah.
To be able to take care of yourself or your partner.
Yeah.
If you can't actually get out and be able to do something, I'm like,
and I agree. I think that's, again, how deep do you want to go? And I talk to people, how much money do you want to spend? So like in my car specifically, because I've thought this, I have run calls where people have been pinned in for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And bleeding, and luckily nobody's bled out, waiting us to cut them out. But I've got a molly panel that mounts under my seat that I have a tourniquet in, on a tourniquet holder. So I think the same thing, that if I get pinned in here, so long as I can reach that tourniquet that's just right under my seat, I can apply it to hopefully any limb that I need to. But then again, how deep do you go? And if you're traveling to Florida and you got, myself, my wife, and 2 kids, like, do you have a tourniquet for everybody in the car? Like, how do you...
Multiples.
That's what I'm saying.
Like,
so
how far do you want to go down the rabbit hole?
Yeah. How prepared do you want to be, or how much do you want to spend? Because again, okay, the tourniquet's $30 times 4, $120. I can treat, 4 limbs, and who knows what you're gonna run into. That's why I think too, like some of the non-TCCC recommended tourniquets are good too. We like the SWAT T by H&H Medical. It's it's like a big rubber band that you pull and you stretch, and it changes from a diamond to a square to a diamond when you've got it pulled tight enough. It's not TCCC recommended, but it's just another adjunct. It's another
right. I mean,
tool in the tool belt.
One of the cool things that you brought up to me was when I bought one of your kits. I have one that I keep in the little Camelback backpack that I use for mountain biking or when I go on the river doing kayaking. Was you're like, well, a normal tourniquet won't work for a kid or a dog.
Right.
So that SWAT T is usable in that scenario, and you're like, oh, the odds of it actually happening to, like, say my dog Cora, pretty low, but hey, now I have it, and now I can actually potentially save my dog's life.
Yeah, I think, the cat tourniquet will work down on most kids. You're saying it won't work on kids.
Well, I mean, like you said, the smaller ones.
Yeah. I just want to clarify. Yeah, I mean, it'll work on most kids. Again, 5 inches in diameter is roughly the circumference that it'll work down to. But yeah, the SWAT T again is the K9 TCCC recommended tourniquet. So there's all sorts of stuff. Again, it's how deep do you want to go, how much money do you want to spend, and how prepared do you want to be. And
right.
Most people are good. Like, oh, I've got a box of Band-Aids from Walmart, and I'm good. And I would highly disagree with that. But
okay.
Yeah, it just depends on the person, and again, how prepared, how much money do they want to spend, and what's their level of comfort.
Right. So you've also we're on the same shift or on the same crew. You were talking about the other day that you've almost been doing fire and EMS as long as some people have been alive now.
Yeah.
So you said you're coming up on 18 years, right?
Yeah. Well, so this is 16 this year. So
okay.
We were just chatting and get to that point where people will be working at the department. I've been working there as long as they've been alive or whatever. They're
right.
starting off at 18 and okay, well, I started when, before you were born. And but sometimes I think that's cool. The people like Captain Townsend, who retired several years ago now. I think both his kids are working for the department, and
that's his kids.
I believe so.
The twins.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. I didn't know that.
Where I remember cool. You had Brooke on. Was that their first episode? I think second. And I remember when I came out of the field and went to Station 12, where Stan was, and bringing his kids around. So Denver and Brooke coming by the station when they were, however old they were at that point, 16 years ago. So they were, 5, 6, whatever they were. But so, yeah, just to get that point where on our crew, it's like, well, I'm the oldest one at the station. I've been a medic the longest. I've worked for the department the longest, on our crew. I'm like, how did I get here? What happened? I feel old. Yeah, I feel old now.
So how do you feel fire and EMS has changed over the past almost 2 decades now?
2 decades. I think technology, man, has really sped things up, and not necessarily the way we put fires out, but just I was talking with my wife. It just seems like a lot more like a business now than when I first started. I think a lot of the stuff that UL has come out with has been good, and actually putting some science behind some of the stuff that we do. Because again, I remember when we started, it was just oh yeah, we'll go bust some windows, and that's not what you want to do. And there's some science to back that now, whereas before it was kind of just okay, well, we'll just get the bad stuff out and now
smash all the windows, and then the house just burns to the ground.
Right. Yeah, you just speeding it up, and then the building construction is way more deadly now than it ever was. And
did you see that post that was starting to circle around? I saw it on Facebook. I think a couple people shared it, but it was showing that like right now, in the room we're in, you could see the exposed studs.
Yeah.
Now it's actually going to that being particle board.
Yeah, yeah.
So none of it is actually true lumber anymore. Yeah. Getting back to dimensional lumber and everything. Yeah. But yeah, the building construction is going cheaper and cheaper, and it's it's cheaper to build, it's more efficient, but it's the second fire touches it.
Right. I think it's structurally strong and sound, but most people don't think about, because they're not firemen, that the second heat gets on glue or I-beams or metal, that it's
your house just falls apart.
Yeah.
So for us, talking about back in the day, what do they refer to it? The antique era or
legacy? I think
legacy era. You had roughly 17 minutes to get out of a house.
Yeah. Well, and things just burned slower. You weren't using everything that was petroleum based products,
right.
So
organic
you go to,
versus petroleum based.
Grandma's house that the couch is built out of, full dimension lumber and cotton and, stuff like that, versus everything now is, fake leather and
has some kind
nylon and stuff like that off gas is worse stuff and burns quicker and hotter, and the type of construction, everything is open concept, so it allows all those things to flow faster around the house. And then, like you said, even here, there's nothing protecting the supports or the structural members. So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that goes into how a house burns. And,
yeah, it's wild just to like go through and walk. I haven't seen it in like we've done walk-arounds like in the neighborhoods that are being built around our stations. I haven't seen that stuff yet. Hopefully that doesn't come to like where we work.
You're talking particle board?
Yeah,
particle board.
Yeah, the particle board instead of.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the LVL beams, which are again designed to span greater lengths without having supports, and they're still pushed together. But
yeah, but them going now down, even down to like the 2x4s and stuff, it's like, oh man, that's scary.
Yeah, I haven't seen that yet. And hopefully we don't, but we probably will.
The newer and newer building construction for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like terrifying.
Yeah, unfortunately. And again, so this was years ago, but my mom called me after she drove by a fire, down the street or whatever. And she was like, there were, 6 fire trucks and all that. She's like, why are there so many people there? I'm like, well, Mom, because it's freaking hard work, and there's a lot to do in a short amount of time. And, then obviously you get into staffing and all that kind of stuff, going back to how we've seen the department grow over the last 20 years. There's been a lot of growth in our county over that time frame in a good way and a negative way. I feel like the county population-wise has just exploded. And then our department has absolutely grown. I think going by employee number alone, I think our new guy Palmer, I think his number is like 500 higher than my number. So, that's a sequential thing. So there's been roughly 500-ish people come through our training centers or whatever to get certified. And we definitely don't have those people still. There's a lot of turnover.
Right.
But, going from one-man trucks, and I've talked to some people before me that was kind of like, they came out of recruit school as a driver, and like, okay, here, go to the station. Now you're at that station by yourself, fresh out of recruit school, driving around and doing your thing.
Figure it out.
Yeah. And now that's so far
from where we are now.
Which is awesome.
Yeah, but even still, like you said, your mom drove by and saw 6 engines.
Yeah.
Or 6 apparatus.
Yeah.
Like, those are rookie numbers compared to like something like the big cities, FDNY, where
oh gosh, yeah.
their responses. We were watching videos yesterday, like at 4, and like they saw the fire before it got dispatched out. So like they were already headed this way. This one particular engine was headed that way, and then it starts going dispatching, and they're already on scene. And then you just see like all these engines and trucks and squads and stuff like that pile in, and it was crazy to see like the amount of just people waiting to have a job.
Yeah, we don't have
like
that
we got
problem.
like they got like 20 people plus standing on the side, just like in gear, like holding tools, like ready to rock and roll, and that's never been us.
No, you might have somebody stand around every now and again, but
not 20-something people.
No, is it a person or a crew?
And that's with already a bunch of other people working.
Yeah.
So it's just wild to see that.
Yeah, I think we're going the right direction. It's just all money.
Yeah.
When you really boil it down to what, it's really just money. Trying to get people to let go of their purse strings. You'll pass them and be like, oh, thank you for what you do. I appreciate you being out here. And like, well, I appreciate that, but really, I just need you to be okay with taxes going up. And I think if people truly knew, and I don't think they do, again, it's like my mom asked me why, they don't understand what it takes to run a fire department or what it takes to run an EMS agency or the police department or whatever. I think if they truly knew and understood all of those things, they'd be like, okay, yeah, I'm cool with you having some more money. Oh, you need more people for this reason, which again I think is part of the accreditation process and understanding and continual improvement. But if people truly knew how any of this stuff works, I think they would be like, okay, yeah, you can have some money. If it really means you can save my life or my kids or whatever. It goes back to teaching classes, and,
Yeah.
and being prepared. You prepare for the worst and hope for the best, and hope you never need it. But
Right.
you got to have some sort of plan in place, which I think is the fire department as a whole is. People call us when they don't know what else to do, so it's like we're their backup plan, or I think they're plan A for a lot of people. They don't have a plan A except for call us.
Yeah. And sometimes they call for the stupidest reasons, and
Yeah.
we're like smacking our head like, oh my God, I can't believe you called us for that. And
Yeah.
then there's the other end of the spectrum where you're like, oh, damn, you do need to go to the hospital.
Yeah, and then they're the ones that don't want to go.
Yeah.
Like, do you really need to go to the hospital?
Super stubborn.
I don't want to. I think the squad ran yesterday a constipation call. It's like, that's definitely not an emergency for the most part. But nobody wants to take on the liability of
Not
saying
responding.
no.
Yeah.
And I think until we get to that point, I think we've done so well, probably before we ever started, of like telling everybody just call 911. You have a problem, call 911. Yeah, whatever it is, call 911.
But now it's like we need to educate more.
Now it's, well, you don't need to call 911 for. I've seen some good
You should go
billboards.
to urgent care.
Yeah, that are saying, like, go here for this or go here for that. I think those are great, and we need more public education on those. But then again, then they go to the urgent care, and the urgent care just calls us.
Like
one of the
funniest examples. It's like you went on this call with me, and like I was on the squad, and it was, I think it was like down 140. It was like 2 something in the morning, and gets paged out as like man bit by rat or something like that. And I was just like not in the mood for that. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. You're like, what the hell? Like,
Yeah.
Come on, and get out there, and he's like, shows me his finger, and it's almost like a blood glucose prick, just like the tiniest little blood. And he goes, "Do you think I need to go to the hospital get stitches?" And I'm like, "No."
Yeah.
You want to see the rat? No.
Yeah.
Okay, well, have a good night. I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Hey, do you want a Band-Aid? No, I'm good.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye.
I do remember that.
Really?
Yeah. And it's just crazy the stuff you get paged out to. You're reading the notes on something, and it turns into something completely different, or the stuff you see. It's crazy. Like the full arrest you guys ran a couple shifts ago.
Yeah.
What it paged out as, or
Yeah.
the notes of what it was.
Completely different from what it turned into.
You get paged out to somebody bleeding, and you wind up their face down on the floor breathing 4 times a minute. You're like, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not gonna last long.
So I mean, you've seen it go from like slower to busier as well over your time frame, like just the amount of call volume. So like, have you seen, like, kind of lean more back towards fire? Obviously, like, fire's kind of dropped off as much. How much would you say like you were fighting back in the day? And it's like obviously like these numbers compared to somewhere like Atlanta and DeKalb are like that's what we fight in a week.
Yeah. I think it's been a lot based on station assignment. When I was at 9 in Canton, we did a lot more fires and shootings, stabbings, bad calls when I was there than we've had when I've been at our current station. We just don't run that much stuff. We've had a whole influx of population, but it's all new construction. It's expensive, so you're more affluent to be able to live in that area. But when you go into the cities, there's a lot more stuff.
The older stuff
going on, the mill houses, and just again the lower income really seems to be a little more prone to
fire,
bad stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think is good if that's what you want. When I was at 9, it was I was younger, and I didn't have any kids and whatever, and being up all night was totally fine. And now like I got kids, and like, man, it's 9 o'clock. It's time for bed at the station, and I hope we don't get up in the middle of the night, and we're good to go. But yeah, I think those busier stations, again, like 1 and 19, and they fight a lot more fire. Again, I think it really has to do with location and then the population that lives in that location.
Right. What would you say, like, is there like a good fire that you can look back on that you learned a lot from? Or kind of like your first fire?
Yeah, I can't remember my first fire, but I've learned some good lessons on several. One I can remember. Shows probably how old I am now, but our old pass devices were you actually had to pull a clip off to activate the pass device, and it was just like something that clipped on your air pack. And we parked like, I don't know, half a mile away from the fire and walked all the way in. And the way they had it set up at the time was the clip that removed was tied around the truck. So you hop out and it pulls off and it activates and then you can go. So now I'm wearing my air pack for like 3 hours because I can't set it down because I don't have the clip to put back on it. And if I take it off, it's just going to go off. So I had to wear it and move the whole time. I could have probably just walked back to the truck, but I was pretty new at the time and like, oh, I'm with my crew. I'm staying here. We're pulling ceiling or whatever. But everybody else had their air packs off and I still had to wear mine. And then I remember the first fire I pumped when somebody actually was interior on the line. And again, I was at 9. It was something right behind the station. And it just was kind of like one of those moments where it's like, man, like I'm responsible in a way for the guys in there. Because like if they don't have water, well, that's on me. And what they really need is water. So it was one of those things that was just like, all right, I'm responsible, to maintain water for these guys.
Right.
And it's, pitch black and it's hot and it's whatever. And they're relying that water will be there. It's not really something you think a whole lot about when you're on the line.
You're just hoping that you keep a steady stream.
Yeah, I mean, you're when you're on the line, you're like, oh, I'm going to open my bail and water's going to be there. That's really the thought that goes into my head when I'm on it, which I'm not on the line anymore much. But yeah, so it was, I got to make sure these guys have water.
Right.
And then I remember drafting on one fire, and the fire chief at the time showed up, and he's like, "Hey, how's it going?" I'm like, "Oh, hey, chief. Yeah, it's good. We're good." And he was just helping me make sure we were pulling our draft and all that kind of stuff was cool. I think our leadership now is pretty top notch and willing to put in the work to make sure we get what we need.
So a big change in like technology and like even the gear we use. What about like say like the tactics? Like you said like it's more like science based now.
Yeah. Get like door control. Again, just when I came out, and maybe it was just my officers at the time, but it was never talked about much. Like, hey, let's make sure we control our vent points. And now again, I think with the technology and the studies and the UL lab stuff that they're coming out with is, don't give the fire oxygen.
Right.
Really,
Don't help it.
Yeah. Don't give it what it needs. If it becomes vent limited, that's fine. Let it become vent limited and it'll not put itself out, but it's not going to get everything that it needs. So I think, the studies on all those kinds of things are really interesting. And a lot of times they're really freaking boring to watch. We get, hey, go log in and watch this, series of videos. And it's like, if the water hits the back of the wall, where is it going? You're like,
oh yeah, that one.
Yeah. Or what's the best place to apply the stream of water when you're exterior and you're like, God, this is just, I don't know, put it through the window, man. I don't know. But they've studied all that stuff and it's crazy that there is, might be a better application of water or place for application or, then you see concepts come in and then that is the hot ticket thing for a little while and it goes out into something else. Like I remember slicers came through, I don't know, 6, 7 years ago, 8 years ago.
I think that was like right before my time.
Yeah. And like,
what is that one again?
I can't remember what it stands for. It's like size up, locate, isolate, confine. I don't remember. Again, we love our acronyms,
Right.
So it's,
everybody does.
Yeah, slicers, RECIO, and all that stuff. But it was essentially like get your line off the truck quick, hit it from the outside, maybe pull a second line to the front door, wherever your entry point is going to be, and then you reset the fire, then you come in, and nobody's talking about slicers anymore. But I remember we set up training in our crew, my officer at the time, he went to a slicers class and was like, man, this is great. And then, now we're into blue card, and it's all what we're doing now, which I think is great for managing and having a plan. But I'm sure there'll be something else in another 5 years that is the next great thing.
We were watching a couple of videos the other day at 4, and one of the things that was really interesting, it was a different one from the one I had mentioned earlier, but the chief shows up on scene and immediately does this like size up, and there's no like delay in anything, like compared to like what we're doing like blue card right now, where it's almost like really slow paced.
Yeah.
And obviously as we get better, like things will speed up. I get that, but the one takeaway that everybody in the room had was like, damn, the IC like straight killed it. Like he was just unfazed. People were chiming in and they're just like, engine, whatever, like this is what's going on. And he's like, all right, cool, you go do this. And then another person came in and he was asking somebody a question, and then somebody else chimed in. He just answered them completely unfazed and then just moved on, and then like readdressed the other guy, and unreal. Like just he absolutely just killed it. It was so cool to watch and listen, like how like a real pro just can handle a scene. And it's not like so many things like coming at him all at once, and he's just like, okay, well, we'll do that one and do that and then do this, and just handled it like a champ.
Yeah.
Compared to like blue card, where it just seems like it's very slow paced, and this guy was just, as things came up, tackling them. Everybody stayed fast paced.
Yeah.
Got the job done.
I think there are good and bad of blue card, and I think that's good and bad of any thing you run into. You got to open that communication model, and do things in a certain order, say a certain thing, which can be hard. I think the training evolutions we've gone through, I think they seem like they're a lot more hectic than it'll be on the real thing, because we're so time compressed at the training center. I think it's,
Well, I mean, like you'd be time compressed like on a real fire, like
right. But I mean more like maybe units piling in on. Again, we're at the training center. Like, okay, wait 30 seconds.
oh, like how well they're set. Okay. Gotcha.
Yeah, wait a minute, and absolutely things would be time compressed on the fire ground, but again, we're able to park right in front of the building and stretch a little bit of hose, and then the next truck is there. I think for the most part, that's not.
Sometimes the lines operate. Sometimes the lines are already laid out, so you don't have to pull them.
Yeah.
Yeah, to facilitate getting all the rotations. Okay.
Yeah. So in that respect, I think we're time constrained or piled on top of each other. But I think it's been good training. It's been good for me as an officer to be able to practice with people actually running around and doing stuff and pulling lines, and you can only armchair quarterback so much, or pull a line in the front yard so many times without it. I don't say it loses something, but again, when we were done doing the live fire ones, those were great. Those were pretty cool.
Yeah. So you said like you're an officer now, obviously, like you're a lieutenant. How would you say like you've evolved over like the course of your career, like going from just being like the normal little firefighter who just rides backwards and runs EMS calls to now like you actually like leading a crew, of which like I'm a part of.
Right.
How would you say that's like, obviously you've grown up outside of the fire department, but like within it as well.
Yeah, I think multiple fronts. I learned a lot of what not to do from some officers, and I think we've talked about that stuff. That's you would look back now and be like, I cannot believe I would never do that. Some of the stuff that I've seen go on at the fire stations, and people that don't work here anymore and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think you definitely evolve. Managing people is tough. Trying to get everybody to kind of be on the same page or believe in what you're doing or whatever. So telling people the why. I think lead from the front. I try not to do stuff that I ask you guys not to do or whatever. I think that's a big part of it, that, you know, you're always on as an officer. There's not a whole lot of downtime, because as soon as I do something that I'm like, hey, we shouldn't do that, and I've been called out, you know, not often, but it's like I do something and I'm like, hey, well, I thought you said don't do that, you know, like as soon as you let your guard down for a second, it's like, oh, well, I thought you said don't do that, you know. And I try to not do those things, or I try not to be, you know, a dick, because there's a lot of stuff that, you know, for me is not hard to do, but some people just, they don't want to do X, Y, or Z for whatever reason. So I think, again, managing people, and then trying to build that crew integrity, you know, and again, Hicks was a big part of, I'm not gonna say a change in mindset, but, you know, like, it was tough when he passed. Like, we had tried to build all this crew integrity and do stuff, and for the first little bit, I was like, man, this blew up in my face, you know, and that's how I felt, because, you know, we would have family days on Saturday or Sunday, and everybody would come down with wives and kids, and everybody knows everybody, and, you know, we went camping 2 weeks before they were killed, and I had my kids there, and you know, there was a part of me for a little bit that's like, man, this blew up in my face, trying to get everybody to know everybody and be super close, that now, like, everybody's hurt because...
Yeah, but I mean, you can't expect that.
I know.
Like, you can't put that on yourself.
But I agree. But that's the way I felt, you know, like right
Just
afterwards.
the burden of leadership.
Yeah, you know, and telling my kids that, hey, you know, Amber and Justin were murdered, you know. That was probably one of the hardest things that we ever had to do.
Yeah. Just talking to your kids about it.
Yeah, you know, just, yeah, telling them that, you know, they're dead, and my kids, you know, again, we just went camping like 2 weeks, so it's not like they didn't know who they were or hung out. We went camping and Jacob was there, and you know, so trying to explain that, you know, well, it was a bad guy, and the bad guy's in jail now, and that was really tough to tell, you know, a 6 and 8 year old that, you know, those people we just hung out with and come to the station, you see is
gone.
It's such a ridiculous way. You know, there's some stuff that is
it's like we all come to terms with the whole, like, possibility of, like, line of duty death.
Yeah.
But something like that's just completely unexpected.
Yeah. And you know, I was thinking about this before the podcast, and the one, I think, not regret, but, like, I wanted to tell you guys personally, you know what I mean? Like, I know you were talking with Tyler, you got a call from somebody or whatever, and I found out probably a couple hours before that email went out.
For one, that should not have come out through an email.
And again, I think it's okay to come out in an email because, you know, you got 400 people to tell or whatever. Like, you're not, I mean, I suppose you could call everybody, but I was trying to get a hold of our crew before anything came out so that I could tell you. And I don't think I made it. I don't think I talked to everybody. And, like, one guy was transporting, and I called, hey man, what's up? And I'm like, I'm already tore up and crying, and I'm like, you know, like, how do you tell him? You know, it's like I'm trying. Yeah, I remember he was transporting in the back of the truck and must have been working overtime or something. It's like, hey man. So that was, again, like, the one thing I wish I could have called everybody prior. But man, I was like, I got a call again a couple hours probably before, and I was like, no, that doesn't sound right.
So you felt that was because you were the guy over the crew, like you were the
I feel like it was my job to...
I got to put everything aside and I got to take care of my guys,
well,
even off duty.
Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, that speaks pretty highly of your character there too, though.
Yeah, I mean, I think I've told you guys that too, is that, like, you know, if you need anything from me, just call me.
Right.
You know, especially drinking and stuff. That's the stupidest thing to lose your job over, is a DUI, you know.
Yeah, I mean, we've had that conversation with Uber and Lyft.
But every year it seems like somebody does it. You know what I mean? So I would rather you call me at 3 o'clock in the morning saying, hey, and I will Venmo you $8 for an Uber, or call one, or, you know, whatever, we can figure it out. But yeah, I feel like absolutely it was my my role to call you guys and try and fill you in on what was going on, and
Right.
I was trying to get verification because, again, just like everybody else, like that doesn't sound right.
Yeah.
You know, that
Like,
can't
what?
be
No.
what happened. And I called one chief. I think the car 6 for the day, and I didn't get an answer. So I called Hicks, and just to see, hey, you can answer your phone.
Hey, fucker, pick up.
Yeah. And so then one of the chiefs finally called me back and was like, "Hey, man." And again, I was like, "Hey, I've heard some stuff," and he's like, "Yeah, it's true." And I lost it then. I was like, "Oh, like what?" And then again, I think I started. I had to process for a little while, which was tough. And then again, tried to call you guys, and then I talked to Tim, and everything went on from there. But yeah.
So, kind of steered it back away, like bring it up a little bit. So, like, you're a lieutenant now, and did you ever see yourself as, like, when you joined the fire service, like being like a crew leader?
No, I mean, I don't think it was ever a thought in my mind. But I probably didn't know a whole lot about it, to be honest.
Well, it seems like some people come in and they're like, I want to be chief, and they're political from day one, and like they know what they want to do, and like they're doing all this like stepping stones.
Yeah, I think my advancement really has come more from seeing other people in those roles and think, I can do your job as good, if not better, than you. Mm-hmm. And that's my thought process, whether I'm right or wrong, I don't know. But seeing other people, again, doing stuff that I would never even think about doing, and think, okay.
I mean, I had that same process for medic.
Yeah.
Like going to paramedic school was just like being on the box either with overtime or like crew members or whoever getting floated out, and like, I could do your job.
Yeah. And again, we've had this conversation about, captain. I'm eligible for captain time frame wise. But I look at some of the captains out there now, and most of them like, you're doing a good job. I don't think I can do your job better than you.
Keep it up.
And for a 10% raise for me is not enough of a reason, and two, most people, I don't say most people, some people will test every time they're eligible because they're eligible. And I, again, do personal stuff that I wanted, like as a sergeant, before I got promoted, I wanted to at least be in command of a fire. And I was lucky enough to have that opportunity, 2 times. And it's like, okay, I've done that. Again, a lot of people, and not of any fault of their own, but are, sergeants or officers that have never pumped a fire. And as a sergeant, I was like, okay, I want to pump a fire as an FAO before I try and promote. And again, some of those people you can't help that. Again, your station assignment, and you got to be the first due truck, driving the first due truck on that day that you get the fire. And again, I think the
odds are not in your favor,
right? And obviously, so not everybody's going to have that opportunity. But those are for me, like, how do I choose when to test or when to advance, or and that's kind of just what I personally hold to.
Yeah. Cool. So I'm like, we've had the discussion of like me trying to get to sergeant now, and actually started reading.
Yeah.
The other day. I've been trying to, like, the whole procrastination thing. It's just, for me, I hate reading.
Yeah.
Especially online. And like I could sit down and I could read like a normal book, no problem. I'm currently reading a couple different things that I'm enjoying, but then when you get down to like the terminology books and it's hard for me to focus on that. But like now it's like, okay, well, it's time.
Yeah. And I think it's different for everybody.
Right. I didn't do it last year because I wanted to definitely just focus on like being a medic first. I didn't want to be a brand new sergeant and a brand new medic and then be on one of those calls and be like,
Yeah.
Like, I'd rather get my feet wet now as like a medic, and I definitely say I'm like a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
And obviously there's always room to grow and learn new things. But yeah, like,
and I think that's part of being, in charge or an officer or whatever as well, is humility. I feel like I tell you guys all the time, like, I don't know everything. By all means, I do not know everything, and I'll mess up and have messed up, and I can think of stuff that I've done wrong that like man, that was really stupid. Of stuff that I've done that I've had my butt chewed for, but I think nobody is perfect. So again, I think if you come into that with that, like, I'm awesome, I'm the best there is, and I don't do anything wrong, and whatever, I don't think that lends itself to being
a good leader.
Yeah. I think you got to be willing to admit that you're wrong, or that you've done something wrong, or that there's another way to do it, more than one way to stretch a line, or all sorts of different stuff. So there's no one way
Right.
to do anything.
Yeah, it was one of the things that I always had a little bit of difficulty with working with my dad doing landscaping.
Yeah.
Was when he did things, like, he wanted things done a very specific way, because like that's the way he knew to do it, and like that's the way he wanted it. And it's like, generally you try and find like, okay, what's the most efficient way, or like, how can I hack this to like do this better, or he never liked it.
Yeah.
And I always tried to explain it of like, you're right-handed, I'm left-handed, I'm obviously always going to do something a little bit different.
Yeah.
But like, as long as the outcome's the same, it's it comes out, and like, as long as the end product is good, it's like, who cares how it really gets done if nobody gets hurt or nothing breaks along the way.
And I think for the most part, that's okay. I think there are certain times when things need to be done a certain way, for intubation or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I think for the most part, again, around, especially like station life, I feel like I'm pretty easygoing for the most part on that, because we're all chilling. And again, I think, the only reason we're here is to run calls, and, again, station life stuff is totally different than running calls and training and those kinds of things. So, I think there's more than one way to do just about anything.
Yeah, I love the whole station life aspect of like, everybody's just cool and friends and just hanging out and like training, doing whatever, and then like as soon as the call hits, it's like, now you're Lieutenant Miller or Sergeant Dobson, and it's okay, now it's got to be done a very specific way for this short amount of time frame, and then as soon as like it's done, it's like, right, cool, like we can all kind of like goof off again and like, go back to normal.
Important to be able to have that flip a switch ability, you know what I mean, so that you can again go from station life to running a call where things matter. It's like, who takes the trash out and how they do it makes no difference,
right?
But who takes a STEMI call and how they do it, well, that matters,
right?
So yeah,
cool. So one thing I forgot with Tyler's episode was the whole advice thing. We were just kind of in like a mood for that one. In the end, he's like, invest early. We had talked about it afterwards. We were back upstairs in the kitchen, and I was like, oh crap, I forgot the advice. And he's like, invest early. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. I'll bring it up on the next one. So if you had to say anything, like just in general, or new firefighters or whatever.
I think honestly, it can go for life as a whole. And I got this from a battalion chief who's now retired years ago, but it was do the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and that can apply, I think, to your whole life, and if you're just doing the right thing because that's the right thing to do and you can stand by your decision, I think we'll be good.
Cool. Solid advice. Well, thank you for coming on.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this episode. I really hope you enjoyed it. Please follow us on your favorite podcast app, hit that bell for notifications on new episodes, and please share with a friend. Thank you for all the support so far. I really appreciate it. Have a great day.